The sky above New Busan turned red on a Tuesday morning. Captain Yuna was drinking her coffee when the first alarm rang through the Colonial Defense Building. She dropped her cup and ran to the command room where her soldiers were already watching the screens with pale faces.
What is it?
She asked, but she already knew. The shapes in the sky were not natural. They were ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Lieutenant Do Yen pulled up the sensor data. His hands were shaking. Velith Dominion warships, Captain. They came out of nowhere. No warning. No communication. They just appeared. Una had heard stories about the Velith. Every human child learned about them in school. They were an empire that stretched across 4 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had conquered 17 species. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed everything else. But why were they here? New Busan was a farming colony. 3 million people lived here, growing food and raising families. They had no military value. They had no special resources. They were just ordinary people living ordinary lives. The first bomb hit the Eastern District. Yuna watched on the screen as an entire neighborhood disappeared in white light. Then another bomb. Then another. The Velith ships moved slowly across the sky, dropping death with no pattern, no target selection. They were not trying to destroy military bases or government buildings. They were simply killing everyone. "Get me a communication channel," Yuna ordered. "Maybe we can surrender. Maybe we can negotiate." Doyan tried for 10 minutes. The Velith did not respond. They did not even acknowledge the signals. They just kept bombing. Reports came in from across the colony. The hospital was gone. The school district was burning. Refugee ships trying to escape were shot down before they could reach orbit. The Velith were not accepting surrender because they did not want surrender. They wanted extinction. Yuna walked to the window of the command room. Through the thick glass, she could see the distant glow of fires. Somewhere out there, her sister lived with her 2 children. Somewhere out there, her old teacher still ran a small bookshop. Somewhere out there, 3 million humans were dying for no reason at all. Why? Doyen asked, his voice breaking. Why are they doing this? Yuna did not answer. She did not have an answer. The Velith did not need reasons. They had power, and they used it. That was enough for them. A young communications officer named Somi suddenly spoke up. "Captain, I have a weak signal to Earth. It will not last long. The Velith are jamming most frequencies." Yuna walked to the console. Her hands were steady now. Something had changed inside her. The fear was still there, but something else was growing stronger. It was hot and sharp, like a blade being forged in fire. "Record this message," she said. "Send it to Earth Central Command. Send it to every human colony. Send it to everyone who can hear." She took a deep breath and began speaking. "This is Captain Yuna of New Busan Colonial Defense. We are under attack by the Velith Dominion. They came without warning. They asked for nothing. They are bombing civilian areas. They are killing children. They are destroying hospitals and schools." Her voice grew harder with each word. "As I speak, 3 million humans are dying. My friends, my family, my neighbors. People who never hurt anyone. People who just wanted to live in peace." She paused and looked at the burning sky through the window. "We cannot stop them. Our weapons are too weak. Our ships are too few. But I want every human to see what is happening here. I want every human to remember New Busan. I want every human to remember that the Velith did this to us for no reason at all." The building shook as another bomb landed nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling. Yuna did not move. "They think we are weak. They think we will cry and beg and then die quietly. They think we are prey." She turned back to the camera. "Show them they are wrong. Show them what happens when you hurt our people. Show them why every species in this galaxy has one rule they never break." The signal began to break up. Static filled the screen. "Never make humans angry." The transmission ended. Doyen stood beside her in silence. Outside, the bombs continued to fall. The command room was dark now because the power grid had failed. Only the red emergency lights remained, painting everything in the color of blood. Do you think anyone heard? Do-Yan asked. Yuna nodded slowly. Someone heard, and they will come. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But they will come. How do you know? She looked at him with eyes that had changed. They were not the eyes of a scared colonial officer anymore. They were the eyes of something older, something that lived deep inside every human being. Because I know my people, she said. We are patient. We are kind. We build things and grow things and love things. We forgive almost anything. She turned back to the window where the colony was burning. Almost the last bomb fell on the command building 3 hours later. Yuna and her team managed to evacuate most of the civilian survivors to underground shelters before the end. She was leading a group of children to safety when the ceiling collapsed. Do-Yan found her body the next morning, still holding a little girl in her arms. Both of them were gone. But the message had reached Earth. It had reached every human colony. It had reached 40 billion humans who watched their screens in horror, and then in silence, and then in something that had no name. Across the void of space, humanity began to wake up, and the Valeth Dominion, in their arrogance and their cruelty, did not even notice. They had already moved on to their next conquest, or already forgotten the small farming colony they had destroyed. They would remember soon enough. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest building ever constructed by any species. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems, a monument to peace and cooperation. Representatives from over 100 species gathered there to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and maintain order across the galaxy. Ambassador Jisoo had served humanity in this chamber for 15 years. She knew every delegate by name. She had shared meals with them, laughed with them, negotiated with them. She had believed they were her friends. Now she stood before them, covered in ash. Her formal robes were ruined. She had not slept in 3 days. She had just returned from the evacuation ships fleeing New Busan, where she had personally carried wounded survivors to medical bays. The smell of smoke still clung to her hair. The chamber was silent as she walked to the central platform. 3 million people, she began. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the vast space. That is how many humans lived on New Busan. Farmers, teachers, children, old people who had retired to enjoy quiet lives, young couples who had just gotten married. She paused and looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. The Veleth killed them all. They came without warning. They asked for nothing. They simply started bombing and did not stop until everything was dead. The Meldrani delegate shifted in his seat. He was a tall creature with silver skin and large black eyes. Jisoo had once considered him a friend. Ambassador Jisoo, he said carefully, we are deeply sorry for your loss. The Valeth actions are regrettable. However, the Dominion is a sovereign power, and the Council has no authority to. You knew? Jisoo interrupted. Her soft voice suddenly had an edge like broken glass. You all knew what the Valeth were planning. Your intelligence networks are the best in the galaxy. You watched them gather their fleet. You watched them plot the attack. You did nothing. Silence fell over the chamber again. The Thyrene delegate spoke next. She was a small creature covered in blue feathers, known for her wisdom and diplomacy. Ambassador, please understand our position. The Veleth Dominion is extremely powerful. Any intervention would have cost you something, Jisoo finished. Would have required sacrifice. Would have meant risk. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small device. When she activated it, a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Images from New Busan. Bodies in the streets. A school reduced to rubble. A hospital crater where doctors and patients had been vaporized together. Many delegates looked away. Some closed their eyes. Look at it, Jisoo commanded. You owe them that much? Look at what your silence cost. The Meldrani delegate found his voice again. What is done is done. We cannot change the past. The question now is how to move forward. Perhaps negotiations with the Veleth. Jisoo laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Negotiations, she repeated. You want to negotiate with the species that just murdered 3 million innocent people for no reason? The alternative is war, another delegate said. Surely humans do not want war. Your species has been peaceful for 2 centuries. You have no military to speak of. Jisoo smiled then. It was a smile that made several delegates unconsciously lean back in their seats. You are right, she said. We have been peaceful. We put away our weapons. We closed our shipyards. We decided to be farmers and artists and scientists instead of warriors. She looked around the chamber slowly, meeting every pair of eyes. Do you know why we did that? Because we chose to. Not because we forgot how to fight. Not because we became weak. We chose peace because we liked it better than war. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the environmental systems seemed to have gone quiet. Every species in this galaxy knows the oldest rule, Jisoo continued. It is written in your archives. It is taught to your children. It is carved into monuments on 100 worlds. She raised her hand and pointed at the assembled delegates. Never make humans angry. Never hurt what they love. Never test what happens when humanity decides peace is no longer an option. The Thyrene delegate spoke carefully. Ambassador, what exactly does humanity intend to do? Jisoo straightened her ash-covered robes with dignity. We intend to remind the galaxy why that rule exists. We intend to show the Velith what happens when you burn our homes and kill our children. We intend to make an example so terrible that no species will ever forget it. She turned and began walking toward the exit. Wait, the Meldrani delegate called. Ambassador, please. Let us discuss this. Let us help you find a diplomatic solution. Jisoo stopped, but did not turn around. 15 years I have worked in this chamber, she said. 15 years I believed in the council. 15 years I trusted you. She finally turned her head to look back at them. You watched my people die. You could have warned us. You could have helped us. You chose not to? Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but every delegate heard her clearly. Do not ask us for mercy when the war is over. You used up all our mercy. There is nothing left now but the anger. She walked out of the chamber and did not look back. Behind her, the assembled delegates sat in stunned silence. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had no words, and far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, the war machines began to wake up. Admiral Tae-young stood in the command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. He was 63 years old. He had spent his entire career hoping he would never have to give this order. He had prayed every night that humanity would stay peaceful forever. But prayer was not enough anymore. Open. The vaults, he said quietly. The words traveled. Through secure channels to 100 locations across the solar system. Beneath the lunar surface, massive doors that had been sealed for 2 centuries began to grind open. In the asteroid belt, hollowed-out rocks split apart to reveal what was hidden inside. On Mars, underground hangars activated for the first time since the last great human war. Ships emerged from the darkness. Not the sleek passenger vessels or cargo haulers that humans used now. These were different. These were sharp and angular and covered in weapons. These were built for one purpose only. War, Tae HYUNG, watched the reports flood his screens. The Dreadnought-class battleships. The Fury-class destroyers. The Vengeance-class carriers with their swarms of fighter craft, weapons that humanity had locked away because they were too terrible to use. Now they would use them all. His aide, a young officer named Ji-hoon, approached with a data tablet. Sir, the volunteer numbers are in. How many? Ji-hoon hesitated before answering. 40 billion, sir. In the first hour alone, Young closed his eyes. 40 billion people willing to fight. Willing to die? For a colony most of them had never visited. For people most of them had never met. Because those people were human, and humans protected their own. Begin processing them, he ordered. We need crews for every ship. We need soldiers for ground operations. We need engineers, medics, pilots, everything. The mobilization was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Factories that had been producing farm equipment switched to weapons manufacturing overnight. Universities suspended classes so students could work in shipyards. Artists and musicians and poets put down their tools and picked up rifles. Engineer Murray was one of them. She had spent 20 years designing drones for agricultural work. Beautiful machines that planted seeds and harvested crops and kept farms running smoothly. Peaceful machines built for a peaceful world. Now she worked 20-hour shifts, converting them into weapons. They burned our farms, she told her exhausted team during a brief rest period. They killed the farmers who grew food to feed billions of people. So now we will show them what farmers do to pests. Her modified drones were simple but deadly. They were small enough to slip through enemy defenses, smart enough to find weak points, and numerous enough to overwhelm any target. She called them locusts. Across Earth and every human colony, similar scenes played out. Teachers became tacticians. Doctors became combat medics. Construction workers became demolition experts. Every skill, every talent, every resource was turned toward the war effort, and the ships kept coming out of the vaults. Taeyong remembered the history lessons from his childhood. He remembered learning about the dark times, centuries ago, when humans had fought each other in terrible wars. Millions had died. Cities had burned. The weapons had grown more and more destructive until humanity finally realized it. Had to choose between peace and extinction. They had chosen peace. They had locked away the weapons and promised never to use them again, but they had not destroyed them. Some part of humanity had known that one day, peace might not be enough. That day had come. The fleet assembled in orbit around Earth, 4,000 warships, 200 carriers, support vessels beyond counting. Behind them, cargo ships loaded with supplies for a war that could last decades. Taeyong stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Remembrance. He had named it himself, because that was what this war was about. Remembering the dead. Remembering the crime. Remembering that some things could never be forgiven. Communications, he ordered. Open a channel to the Velith Dominion. All frequencies. Make sure they hear this. The signal went out across the galaxy. This is Admiral Taeyong of the United Human Fleet. Am speaking to the Velith Dominion and to everyone else who can hear my voice. He paused and looked at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, the Velith were continuing their conquests. Probably laughing at the small colony they had destroyed. They would not be laughing much longer. 18 days ago. You attacked our colony of New Busan. You killed 3 million humans. Men and women. Children and elderly. You gave no warning. You showed no mercy. You committed this act for no reason except that you could. His voice grew harder. We do not know why you chose us. We do not care. You made your choice, and now we will make ours. The fleet began to move. Thousands of ships accelerating toward the void between stars. We are coming for you. Not to negotiate. Not to demand payment. We are coming to show you what happens when you make humanity your enemy. He thought of Captain Yuna, whose final message had reached every human ear. He thought of the children who had died in their schools. He thought of the farmers who had been burned in their fields. You believe you are conquerors? You believe you are powerful. You believe no one can stop you. His hand formed a fist at his side. You are wrong. We are humanity. We build. We grow. We love. We forgive almost everything. The fleet entered faster than light travel. Across human space, billions watched their screens and prayed. Almost, the message ended. Far across the galaxy, the Velith hierarch received the transmission. He watched it with his commanders gathered around him. One colony, he said with amusement. We destroyed one worthless farming colony and they threaten war with us. They are insects. They are prey. His commanders laughed with him. They did not understand. They had never faced an enemy like humanity before. They had never seen what humans became when they stopped being peaceful. They would learn soon enough. The Velith Dominion had conquered 17 species over 1,000 years. Their strategies were perfect. Their technology was advanced. Their warriors were bred for combat from birth. They had never known defeat. The first battle changed everything. Commander Sung led the advance force against the Velith outer defenses. The ship, the Unforgiving, was surrounded by 50 other human vessels. They faced a Velith fleet 3 times their size. The Velith commander followed standard protocol. He arranged his ships in formation. He calculated firing angles. He prepared for the kind of organized naval battle that had won the Dominion every war. The humans did not follow standard protocol. They came in swarms. Small ships darted between. The larger Velith vessels, drawing fire while destroyers struck from unexpected angles. When one human ship was hit, it did not retreat. It kept fighting, kept advancing, kept firing until it was completely destroyed. They fight like wild animals, the Velith commander reported to his superiors. They do not care about losses. They do not care about strategy. They just attack. Within 6 hours, the VLF outer defense line was broken. Not because humans had better weapons or better ships, but because they fought with something the Velith had never encountered: fury. News of the defeat spread through the Dominion. For the first time in centuries, Velith commanders began to worry. They had expected humans to surrender after a few losses. They had expected humans to negotiate for peace when they saw the power of the Dominion. Instead, humans fought harder. Hierarch Keldros ordered his best fleets to crush the human invasion. 300 warships, led by his most experienced admirals. They met the human fleet at the Corvin Nebula. The battle lasted for days. Sung was there, commanding the Unforgiving from the front lines. His ship had already taken 17 direct hits. Half his crew was dead. The engines were failing. Medical supplies were exhausted. His pilot, a young woman named Yunbi, spoke through cracked lips. "Commander, we cannot continue. The ship is dying." Sung looked at the tactical display. Ahead of them, a Velith forward base still stood. Shields protected it from bombardment. Inside that base, sensors showed thousands of life signs. Human life signs, prisoners, colonists, captured from New Busan and other human settlements. Kept alive for slave labor, or worse. If the humans retreated now, those prisoners would die. How many people on that base? Sung asked quietly. "Approximately 12,000 human prisoners, sir." Sung nodded slowly. He thought of his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old. She had cried when he left for war. She had made him promise to come home. Some promises could not be kept. "All hands," he said into the intercom. His voice was calm. "This is Commander Sung. Our ship is finished. Our mission is not. I am ordering all surviving crew to abandon ship immediately. Take the escape pods. Get clear." Yunbi stared at him. "Sir, what are you going to do? The shields on that base can stop our weapons. It cannot stop a ship moving at half the speed of light." Understanding dawned on her face. Horror followed immediately. "Commander, you cannot." "I can," he said gently. "And I will. Because 12,000 people are counting on us. Because my daughter will grow up in a galaxy where the Velith cannot hurt her. Because I remember every name on New Busan." He stood and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Tell my wife I love her. Tell my daughter I kept my promise. I said I would protect her. This is how I do it." The crew evacuated. Sung stayed alone on the bridge. He set the navigation computer and pointed the Unforgiving at the Velith base. His last transmission was heard by every human ship in the fleet. For New Busan, for the fallen. For everyone who will never be hurt by these monsters again. The Unforgiving struck the base at half the speed of light. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The shields collapsed. The base cracked open like an egg. Human ground forces descended within hours. Specialist Hannah was among the first to land. Before the war, she had been a kindergarten teacher on Earth. She had taught children to read and count and share with each other. She had never held a weapon in her life. Now she moved through burning corridors with cold precision, her rifle raised, her eyes scanning for threats. Her unit advanced toward the prisoner cells, clearing enemy resistance as they went. They found the prisoners alive, scared and starving and wounded, but alive. A little girl, no older than 5, broke away from the group and ran toward Hannah, she was crying and shaking and reaching out her arms. Hannah lowered her weapon and knelt down. She caught the child and held her tight. "It is okay," she whispered. "You are safe now. We came for you. We came for all of you." The little girl sobbed into her shoulder. "The monsters hurt us. They hurt us so much. I know, little one. But the monsters cannot hurt you anymore. We will not let them." She looked up at her fellow soldiers. Men and women who had been teachers and farmers and artists before the war. Men and women who had learned to kill because they had to. "Get everyone out," she ordered. "Every single person. We leave no one behind." They did not leave anyone behind. Not that day. Not any day. The war continued. Battle after battle. Planet after planet. The Velith threw everything they had at humanity, and humanity refused to break. Every defeat made them angrier. Every loss made them more determined because they were not fighting for territory, for resources, or power. They were fighting because they were angry, and the Velith had never faced anything like that before. The war lasted 18 months. The Velith Dominion, which had taken 1,000 years to build, fell in less than 2. World after world surrendered to the human fleet. Not because humanity was stronger in numbers. Not because their technology was better. But because humans did something no other species had ever done. They refused to stop. Every time the Velith thought they had won a battle, human reinforcements arrived. Every time they destroyed a human ship, 2 more took its place. Every time they thought humans would finally give up and negotiate, the attacks grew fiercer. Hierarch Keldros watched his empire crumble from his command ship. He had ruled the Dominion for 80 years. He had crushed rebellions and conquered civilizations. He had never known fear. Now he knew it well. How? He asked his remaining commanders. How are they doing this? We killed millions of them. We destroyed their ships. We burned their colonies. Why do they not surrender? None of his commanders had an answer. The final battle took place above the Velith homeworld. Admiral Taeyong led the assault personally. His fleet surrounded the planet like a ring of iron. There would be no escape. There would be no rescue. Hierarch Keldros, Taeyong, broadcast on all frequencies. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire has fallen. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you do not, we will continue our attack. The response came quickly. Keldros appeared on the view screen, his proud face now haggard and hollow. What do you want? He asked territory. Resources. Name your price. The Dominion will pay. Taeyong shook his head slowly. Still do not understand. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We want you to remember what you did. Keldros stared at him with confusion. New Busan was a farming colony, Taeyong continued. 3 million people who never hurt anyone. They grew food. They raised families. They looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. His voice hardened. You killed them for no reason. You bombed their schools and hospitals. You shot down their evacuation ships. You murdered children in their beds. It was just one colony, Keldros said. One small, worthless colony. We have destroyed hundreds of colonies. Thousands. Why does this one matter so much? Taeyong smiled, but there was no warmth in it, because they were ours. Because they were human. Because we protect our people even after they are gone. The surrender came within the hour. Keldros was brought aboard, the remembrance in chains. He expected execution. He expected torture. He had seen what the Dominion did to defeated enemies, and he assumed humans would do the same. Instead, Taeyong handed him a data tablet. What is this? Keldros asked. Names. Every name of every human who died on New Busan. 3 million names. Keldros looked at the endless list scrolling across the screen. You will read every name, Taeyong said. To your people. To the galaxy. You will spend the rest of your life remembering what you did, and you will make sure no one ever forgets. That was humanity's punishment for the Velith. Not destruction. Not slavery. Memory, every Velith child would learn the names. Every Velith school would teach the history. Every generation would remember the crime and the price their ancestors paid for it. 20 years passed. Ambassador Jisoo stood on the Galactic Council homeworld, watching the unveiling of a new monument. She was old now, her hair white and her steps slow. But her eyes were still sharp, and her mind was still clear. Beside her stood Hyunwoo, who had served as her aide during the war and now served as ambassador himself. "Do you think they will remember?" he asked, looking at the alien delegates gathered for the ceremony. Jisoo watched the Meldrani and the Thyrene and 100 other species bow their heads in respect. These were the same species who had watched New Busan burn. The same species who had done nothing while humans died. Now they built monuments to human determination. "They will remember," she said. The monument was a simple stone pillar, tall and strong. Carved into its surface were words in 1,000 different languages, so that every species could read them. Jisoo had written those words herself. A Meldrani delegate approached her. It was the same delegate who had tried to dismiss human anger 20 years ago. He looked much older now, much humbler. "Ambassador Jisoo," he said quietly, "on behalf of my people, I wish to apologize again. We should have helped you. We should have warned you. We were cowards." Jisoo looked at him for a long moment. "Yes," she finally said. "You were." She turned and walked toward the monument. The crowd parted for her as she approached. She reached out and touched the stone, feeling the carved letters beneath her fingers. The inscription read, "The humans do not start wars. They end them. They do not seek revenge, but they deliver it. They will forgive almost anything. Almost. Never harm their children. Never burn their homes. Never test what happens when you make humanity angry, for they will cross any distance, bear any cost, and fight until the stars themselves burn out. This is the oldest rule. Learn from those who forgot it." Jisoo closed her eyes and thought of all the people she had lost. Captain Yuna, who had sent the message that woke humanity. Commander Sung, who had sacrificed his ship to save prisoners. The 3 million souls of New Busan who would never be forgotten. "We kept our promise," she whispered to them. "We made them remember." A young human girl tugged at her sleeve. She was perhaps 6 years old, with bright eyes and a curious face. "Grandmother," the girl said, "why did the aliens hurt us?" Jisoo knelt down slowly, her old joints protesting. "Because they thought they could," she said. "Because they thought we were weak. Because they did not know the oldest rule, but now they know. Yes, little one. Now they know, and they will never forget." The girl looked up at the monument, trying to read the words. "What does it say?" Jisoo smiled and took the child's hand. "It says that humans are kind, that we love peace, that we forgive almost everything." She looked up at the stars, where human ships patrolled the borders of a galaxy that would never threaten them again. Almost the ceremony ended. The delegates returned to their ships. The monument stood alone under alien stars, carrying a message that would last forever and across the galaxy. In schools, in governments, in military academies, every species taught their children the same lesson: never make humans angry, never hurt what they love, never forget what happens when you do. The end.